Our next presenter is from Veristat. Joining us is Cindy Henderson. She is the Chief Strategy Officer. She's going to illustrate how a reduction of clinical development risks, improvement of data quality, and an accelerated path to regulatory approval can be achieved with Veristat. Welcome, Cindy.
Thank you very much, Perry. Great to be here, and thank you everyone for your time today. I'm excited to talk with you more about Veristat and some of the things that we've been able to do to help sponsors achieve their regulatory success and that ultimate goal of bringing new therapies to patients globally. So first, a little bit about Veristat. Our goal is really to think about the patient, obviously, but also really taking into account each company. Each company is a little bit different. Your corporate goals are different. Your development pathway is different. And we want to make sure that we're meeting your objectives from a corporate perspective and a clinical development perspective. We want to have a flexible and agile approach to contracting with sponsor companies to make sure that we have a solution that is purpose fit to meet their needs throughout the development life cycle. Excuse me. Veristat has, we just celebrated our 30th anniversary, and we're very proud that over those 30 years, we have had a hand in bringing many compounds to market. And Veristat is a very unique ability in that not only do we run the various clinical trials, but based upon the strength of our biostatistics, medical writing, and regulatory experts, we do a lot of work doing the actual BLA, NDA, MAA, JNDA marketing applications, doing the integrated analysis, the medical writing of the full dossier, the regulatory strategy and engagement with the various regulatory authorities across the globe, and publishing and submission through the gateway to those authorities. And so we're very proud of the fact that we've been able to bring 39 cancer therapies to patients over the years, and really look to engage with sponsors as to how we can achieve that, thinking about the end in mind always. So even when we're at those early proof of concept stages in your development pathway, we want to think about what is the end goal and how do we work with you to achieve that end goal. For example, early on, we worked with sponsors engaging with the FDA to get a single-arm therapy through the registration process and through to approval. And at that time, the FDA wasn't really looking at single-arm studies at that time for the approval of oncology trials. So engaging side by side with sponsors, with the regulatory authorities to come up with strategies to achieve those ultimate goals of bringing your compounds to market. Over the past 5 years, we've done a number of trials in the oncology space. You see some of the numbers here, and wanted to highlight that we've worked across various indications and various types of therapies. Obviously, we've seen a lot of, as you just heard, and I would certainly agree, expansion in the biologic space and cell and gene therapies and immunotherapies. And lately, we've also been lucky enough to work and partner with sponsors and radiopharmaceuticals. So really looking at the various types of therapies that are out there to try to treat and solve these problems and these complex indications for patients. Veristat really provides a full spectrum of solutions across the development life cycle, from early strategic consulting through regulatory support, as I just talked about, biometrics, the clinical operations, medical writing, and safety and medical affairs. And one of the things that we really make sure that we do is take a collaborative approach to this across the board. These are not silos that work independently. These are groups that have to collaborate together to ensure we're thinking about the best strategies and the best solutions for this particular program and for the client. And I noticed in the chat that there was a question that someone posed around what the best EDC system and solution might be. And while I think there are many great systems out there, Veristat has certified developers in 3 different solutions, the metadata RAVE system, Meritive's Zelta solution, and the Medrio solution. I would actually argue that it's not necessarily the software in and of itself that you're looking for, but is how do you design the database and how do you implement the design of that database that is really critical. And that's the thing that we really take to heart. And to talk about that collaborative approach, using this EDC design example, we don't just have our data management group build that EDC database working with the software partner. We bring in clinical experts. We bring in the statistical experts and biostatisticians. We bring in medical writing. We bring the sponsor into the solution. We need to make sure that the design and the build of that database is going to work for all stakeholders. It's going to work for the sites. It's going to work for the CRAs, the data managers, the statisticians and programmers, the medical writers, collecting the right data in the right formats and structures. And so that's really just an example of that collaborative approach that we bring to the table around just one of the activities in a clinical trial, that database build. One of the other things that is also I wanted to highlight is from a collaborative approach is really making sure that you can operationalize the trial. There's a lot of talk about what the design of the study is. Is it an adaptive design study? Is it a multi-part, phase 1-2 type of trial? Is it using biomarkers? All of these different design elements and components that you need to think about. But going one step beyond the design, you have to consider how are you going to operationalize the study? How are you going to implement that design? And how do you ensure that the investigational sites understand the design and can take that forward and can operationalize it on a day-to-day basis? We worked with a sponsor in a oncology trial a couple of years ago, and it had a very complex adaptive design approach with both an enrichment component and a futility component. And it was a rather complex design into how it was going to be implemented. The sites, frankly, had some concerns in how they were going to run this and how they were going to get the patients enrolled into these various stages and how the decisions were going to be made around whether we're going to enrich enrollment or if utility was going to be reached. So we came up with a methodology and a training program with some very simplistic visual aids. And we had our statisticians in concert with our medical individuals go to the sites and walk them through this design and how the decisions were going to be made, when we were going to be looking for them to enrich and boost enrollment, when we might hit futility and have to possibly stop the study. And it really took it to that next level with the site, which brought up their engagement, which boosted in patient enrollment, and made sure that we could meet the enrollment targets that the sponsor had because the sites understood it. They knew how to work through this tough design. They knew how to engage the patients and enroll them. And that's really important, making sure that you can engage those sites. They understand this design, understand what they're looking for, and how we can work together through the life cycle of the project. So just another example of that kind of collaborative approach, extending it all the way through to the sites and making sure that they are fully understanding of the trial. One of the things I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about is some of the keys to success that we're seeing in oncology trials in particular. And this goes around first, transparent communication. The sponsor companies, sites, any of the vendors involved, and the CRO involved really need to make sure that we work together as true partners. It can't just be a vendor-sponsor relationship. It has to be extensions of a team and a true partnership where all of the stakeholders are involved in critical decisions throughout the life cycle of the compound or of the study. We need to make sure that we have the appropriate feedback going back and forth between the individuals. We all know that clinical trials are going to have challenges. We have to work together to overcome those challenges. And it is with this transparent communication and transparent understanding of the process that we can work together. We really put in place various feedback loops with our sponsors and with our sites. We do surveys, satisfaction surveys with both our sites and with both our sponsors to make sure that we're hearing directly from them as to what's working and what's not working. We have governance meetings and make sure that we are having that open and two-way communication to understand the goals and objectives of the organization, upcoming timelines, changes to the plan or the development life cycle, to make sure that we can adapt appropriately and meet those goals. I'll give us a small example. If a client is planning to present their findings at an upcoming conference like ASCO or an ASH conference, we really want to make sure we know that and we have enough advanced preparation to collect the data, pull the data together, and provide you the information that you would need to put that presentation together for an event like ASCO. So it's that transparent communication and understanding. Early planning with the end in mind. This goes to a little bit what I was talking about before, but what is your clinical development plan? What is your corporate goals? Are you looking to take this compound all the way through to commercialization? Then how do we think about what countries you're going to, where you go first? Reimbursement, can you get appropriately reimbursed, and the pricing models in those organizations? Or do you plan to partner or sell off this compound to someone after phase 2? Understanding your corporate goals will help us make sure that we're helping to plan and meet out those objectives so you can meet your ultimate corporate goals. We want to have a fully integrated team. We really want to make sure that we're bringing together clinical, medical, biometrics, such as your statisticians and your data managers, and your regulatory perspectives, and bringing all of those stakeholders to bear, and thinking about the aspects such as I talked about the database development earlier, but thinking about the data collection, the analysis, the engagement with sites, the enrollment, really from an overarching and fully integrated approach. If we're not bringing any of the stakeholders into the process early enough, that can really cause inefficiencies and delays later on in the process. So it's really important that we bring all of those stakeholders to the table early on in the process. And as challenges arise, you really have to be creative. You have to think outside the box. You have to bring new solutions to the table as to how you might overcome those challenges. And I can give one brief example. There was a study that we were working on where we were doing the biometrics services, the data analysis and the medical writing of the clinical study reports. And then we were partnering with the sponsor all the way through to submit their NDA to the agency. The phase 3 pivotal trial, unfortunately, due to some delays on the enrollment side, had about a 3-month delay in getting to their database lock. However, as happens quite frequently, the goals of the organization, the corporate goals of the organization, were to still submit their NDA by the end of the year. So we had to partner with that sponsor to come up with ways to overcome that 3-month delay. How are we still going to meet their corporate goals that they had published to the street and allow them to achieve that still and overcome that delay? So we really worked in concert with the sites, the clinical organization, the sponsor, and our biometrics and regulatory team to say, okay, how are we going to collect the data to do an interim data cut? How can we then use that interim data cut with all of the other prior study data to pull together a draft, so to speak, of the integrated analysis? Then using that data cut of the integrated analysis, have the medical writing team work off of that draft data. Then as we're writing the documents, work towards making sure all of the stakeholders were involved in the writing of those documents, the messaging that had to be put forward in things such as live editing meetings, where you had all of the stakeholders together in a room in a live editing meeting versus having everybody go away and a week goes by and then you have to come back and integrate it. So we really worked together in parallel, all the stakeholders, to overcome that 3-month challenge. And we were successful. The NDA was submitted on time, and it is an approved compound today. So it's really overcoming those challenges that might come up, working together with all of the partners and all the stakeholders with flexible ideas, creative solutions to still move the development forward and meet the end goals of the organization. And as I mentioned earlier, Veristat's very proud to do satisfaction surveys and engagement surveys with our sponsors and with investigational sites And I won't read all of this for you. I just thought I would share some of the feedback that we have received from sponsors in the prior year, and really highlight this is about the collaboration, about flexibility, and about partnering together as an extension of the sponsors team. We have to work together as one team to achieve the end results, to better serve patients and get these compounds to the patients much faster. So I thank you all very much for your time. I hope that I've given some guidance and insight as to on Veristat and what we can do to help your organization drive your program forward. I'm certainly happy to reach out, talk to anybody, any point in time. We will be at ASCO as well, and happy to speak with anybody there also. Perry, I'm happy to take any questions that might have come up at this point in time.
Wonderful. Thanks, Cindy. And hi, everyone. I'm Miles. I work with Perry, and I'll be your host for maybe the rest of the event. Cindy, I have one more question here that did come in. What is the most challenging or complex type of cancer therapy that you've supported recently?
Yeah, no, thank you. I think what we're seeing is a little bit along the lines of what I talked about earlier and was mentioned in another presentation. When you're in these novel therapeutic modalities, such as radiopharmaceuticals. It is a very challenging space. It's not necessarily the patient population, but it is around the logistics of how you have to handle the compound and how you have to make sure that the compound is dealt with appropriately, from manufacturing all the way through to the patients, or at the sites, excuse me, and all the way through to the patients. I would say, those cell and gene therapies and the radiopharmaceuticals, bring those logistical challenges that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So that's some of the new things, but very exciting to see these trends in the industry, and hopefully they will bring new and exciting therapies to help patients worldwide.
Cindy, that's perfect. And I think that's going to be a great place for us to wrap up. We're out of time here, but appreciate you being here. Cindy Henderson from Veristat, thanks so much for the great presentation, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.